Hey everyone, I wanted to begin today's episode with a quote. Quote, "If you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading." And that's a quote by Lao Tzu. So the question is, where are you going? Well, isn't that the question? And that's the question we'll be getting into today in a roundabout way on this episode of the All Around Growth podcast. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is episode number 77 of the All Around Growth podcast. And it is a chilly morning. I'm going to run the defroster in my truck as I head down the driveway, so bear with that noise. And as I'm recording, it's 7:14 a.m. The sun is coming up a little earlier. Noticeably, that is. I mean, it is every day, but it's not every day, at least for me, that I can look up and think to myself, we are getting closer to springtime. Because we are literally in the midst of winter, and it was just the solstice a couple weeks ago. But it feels that way, and it either is, or I'm just leaving late. And could likely be the latter rather than the former. But I'm leaving late because it's winter. Expectations are considerably lower. There we go. And business hours are shorter as well. We officially do not open until 8 o'clock. So, anyways, thank you for bearing with my little diversion there. This is the All Around Growth podcast, and this is a show where we talk about the how and why of building the lives of our dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021, and the title of today's show is actually remains to be seen. This is going to be a deeper talk episode. I kind of made that decision early this morning because it wasn't so much that I could not think of a topic, but the reality is when I sat down to journal this morning, I've been changing up how I do that. I sit at my PC. I don't look at my phone until I walk out the door. And when I sat down on my PC, I saw the quote of the day from Brainy Quote, which I have set up to my browser when it opens. And it was, "If you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading." And I think that dovetails quite nicely with the questions that we asked ourselves yesterday about learning different things to get things done and never actually getting things done, or not necessarily being satisfied with the quality of the content of the things we are getting done. So I've really been thinking about where I'm going, and I want to pose that question to you. And a lot of the ways that I think about where I'm going and so on and so forth are with and through exercises that get me thinking in a different direction. And one of the exercises that I've done that allows me to effectively do so is utilizing the Deeper Talk deck from the Best Self Company. And there are 6 categories of cards: dreams, life lessons, exposed, courage, beliefs, self-awareness, and I'm going to select specifically, normally I select at random, but I'm going to select a card from the self-awareness category and wax philosophical today. So some of you may like that, some of you may hate it, but that's what we're up to today, and I want to warn you accordingly. So the random card of the day reads as follows. What would you refuse to give up even if you were offered $10 million? Cripes. I don't want to think about that. But this is a good question to think about. So here we go. Let's roll. 10 million bucks. What are you not going to give up? I think questions like this are kind of weird and subject to I don't know, like a wide breadth of topics. And I mean, I guess that's the point. The point of this deeper talk deck is to facilitate conversation between people. And I understand that a podcast is a little bit one-sided, but in a way, the podcasts that I've listened to over the years make it sound like I'm part of a conversation. I'm part of something greater than myself. And I hope that's the case with this. And you know, where am I going? I'm trying to optimize a number of things. I'm trying to optimize my entire life. And I think one of the ways that I can do so with regard to this podcast is stop recording behind the wheel. I may periodically, increase the little video blogs that I was doing. Those were kind of fun. But I may decrease the podcasting behind the wheel, and I may, instead of doing it 5 times a week behind the wheel for approximately 20 minutes a pop, I might do it once a week and do a more comprehensive, in-depth episode for 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes. I don't know. I'm still kind of bouncing this idea around, but I guess at the end of the day, for 10 million bucks, well, what wouldn't I give up for $10 million? I wouldn't give up this podcasting. You know, it's kind of silly, but I enjoy it, and I'm not. And here's why. What this is allowing me to do, okay, and part of the whole reason behind this podcast is this is sort of the second iteration of this podcast, okay? For those of you who do not know and have not listened to the history of the show, in a nutshell, this is the second iteration of this podcast. Podcast 1.0 was a brief, succinct 10-episode series on wellness. And then I stopped podcasting. I lost those episodes. I stopped. Well, I never did pay for the service for hosting. And since I was using a particular host, the free service had episodes that expired after I think it was 90 days. And for that 3-month period, I put out 10 episodes, 1 a week. And after that 10-week period, I was going to assess a couple things. A, did I like it? Did I enjoy it? B, did I have and grow an audience that encouraged me enough and facilitated the continuation of the podcast? And that was kind of it. And what happened was I was doing exactly this, and it was almost around this same time. I don't know. I guess it was around New Year's or what have you when I actually wrapped up that 10-week series, and then I continued with the podcast into January, February, maybe even dropped an episode in March or whatever, and I stopped and I started doing a video blog instead. And over the course of 5 months, I did 150 episodes on a video blog, and then decided that I wasn't really interested in that, and that I was going to go back to the podcast. So in October of 2020, I started the podcast. And this version of the podcast, 2.0. And I've been putting out episodes daily, and I wanted to be consistent with it because, in addition to sharing, my thoughts and opinions on life, business, and spiritual growth through the lens and of my own eyes and mind, I wanted to sort of document this purpose of, or this practice of finding my purpose, my passion. That's a big part of where I'm at right now. And one of the things that has happened and that I've realized over the course of the last couple of months is that was also around the time I started this podcast that I started focusing in on the way that I was going to spend some time doing some priority work in the mornings before I went to the day job, okay? And I was doing that, but I need to be mindful of how much sleep I'm getting, all right? Because, look, friends, I have epilepsy, and I thought I was doing a relatively decent job of maintaining an adequate amount of sleep. Maybe I was not, and the reality is, sleep or lack thereof and stress are tremendous triggers for seizures. And I had 3 the last year, and that kind of sucks because prior I went for, or previously within the past few years, I went for 2 years without having a seizure. So all of this gets me thinking, and sometimes I find myself wondering if I'm just, producing or creating my own stress. And granted, this was a stressful year for all of us for a number of different reasons. And I think, how all of this ties into the question of the day with this deeper talk bit is, what would I not give up for $10 million? Well, I said podcasting, and I wasn't really joking, because a lot of the the podcasting that I do involves writing, or it could, I should say. And the fact that it doesn't in the way that I would like is part of the reason why I'm going to scale it back. And how I mean that is, you couldn't pay me enough to stop writing. I've been writing since I was a teenager. I've been writing since I was a kid, but not actively making it like my objective to sit down and produce content, right? Like I've never really known what I was doing. I just did it because I enjoyed it. And subsequently, that became the motive for my entire life. If you like it, love it, do it. The rest will get sorted out later. But you couldn't pay me enough to stop writing, because that's just a form of expression. It's my art. And this podcasting is sort of an extension of that. But I want to refine it. I want to make it better, do it differently, provide better quality content. For no specific reason other than I'm trying to optimize my life. And this podcast is a part of it. And I want to not only optimize everything else, but this as well. So, scaling it back is a part of it. And I just wanted to take this morning to kind of ramble, because that's where my mind is at when it comes to the show. And I wanted to, kind of make sure that I'm communicating this and I'm sharing it with the ones who care the most. So hopefully, if that's you, I have done a fair job of doing exactly that. And hopefully, if that's you, or that just became you after this morning's episode, and you want to help support this show even as it goes through a period of transition and change, the best way that you can support the show is going to the show notes and scrolling down to the very bottom of the show notes, and you will see a link to rate and review the podcast. Big capital letters. Click here to rate and review the podcast. Very briefly, you can follow that link, give it a 5-star rating, and if you feel so inclined, you can even give a written review, which is most appreciated. That link takes you to the Apple Podcasts website, and at this point in time, trying to get some functionality and some things happening, moving and shaking there is the best way to affect the algorithms and get some more visibility on the show, as far as I can tell. If you've got other ideas, by all means, drop them my way, and you can do so by sending me an email at allaroundgrowth@gmail.com. If you have any questions or feedback, and anything for that matter, send it my way. And last but not least, you can join the community on Telegram Messenger on your desktop browser. You can find us at t.me/allaroundgrowth. Or if you've got the Telegram Messenger app on your phone, you can find the group by searching All Around Growth. And that's about it, everyone. We've got a small community there on Telegram, but it's pretty cool, and Telegram is a great way to message and communicate with one another. So definitely check us out on there. There are fewer of us who are using the Facebook group, which helped launch the podcast 1.0, like I mentioned. But some of us are there. But personally, I am trying to utilize Facebook a little bit less. So definitely check us out on Telegram. All right. This is Rob Kaiser, and you've been listening to the All Around Growth podcast. Thank you for your time, and have a great day. Bye-bye.